think fives are the numerologists' kind of like signifier of change. That's what I've been learning at home recently. Yeah, who knows what that means? But I'm very happy to be here in the studio on this lovely Sunday, and I'm joined by Will, who you may or may not know from Twitter and the internet as Slaanice. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good morning, sir, from the eastern coast of the United States. It's both surreal and a real pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show. You are a warrior who I admire, which is so it's really exciting. But you're also like a consummate hobbyist, so I'm very much excited to talk to you today about just all manner of things. But before we get started with that, I would like to just say hello to everyone who is joining us live. I hope you're well, and I'd also like to say thank you to anyone who's listened to the podcast. I don't know if you heard yesterday, but we recorded our 400th podcast, which is exciting, and we're now on the road to 1 million. We're about 60,000 listens off 1 million. And I'm very excited about hitting that number. It's arbitrary. It means not. I mean, I'm incredibly happy with how everything has gone so far. But the excitement of just being able to say that million thing. You know, I could be in a coffee shop. When coffee shops reopen, I can be the swankiest. I can be the swankiest hipster in that coffee shop and be like, "Well, my podcast has 1 million downloads," and everyone can mock me, which is my dream. I'm hoping. I also know that
that's the number one danger of quarantine is that you might be tempted to start a podcast. It's terrible.
I've always been ahead of the curve, which is a shame because we should flatten the podcast curve, is what I think.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, everyone's going to have 1 million downloads because no one's got anything else to download.
Yeah, everyone's got nothing to do. So, hello to War Machine Diadrin, War Master Nikos, and then Nikos says, "Wow, Slaanice is way sexier than I even imagined."
Oh man, I'm in my basement right now. Like I blurred out the background, but this white blob—that's my washing machine, right there. And I got my bathrobe on.
You look great. You don't have to worry.
Thanks.
I mean, as you know, my office is not like Buckingham Palace, which is down the road. To all Americans, Buckingham Palace is just down the road to me. It's just over there.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's just there.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you know the Queen?
Like them, and then Mud Shoot, and then you guys, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. Downton Abbey is actually across the road. So that's all of the places I think that people know. So how have you been? That's my question. How's things there?
We're taking it day by day, as I'm sure a lot of people are. I can't see the chat or anybody who's here, but I just first and foremost have to thank the AOS community, the Honest Wargamer community, both members of the Rage of Sigmar community, for the support that I've gotten.
Both of their listeners.
Both of them. Dealing with all of this insanity that we've all been thrown into, and I have to say that I've seen some ripples of negativity and stuff like that kind of shoot through the community here and there from my incessant online presence, but I gotta say kudos to our town as far as being compassionate to each other and as far as understanding that our situations are very, very different dealing with this whole thing, even within the same country within the same town. Our personal situations are very different. And it's really stuck out to me when you see a lot of other communities kind of really crumbling and having trouble being humans to each other because we're all under this incredible stress. So as for me, we're doing okay. I'm in a pretty good spot as far as America goes. And our governmental reaction to this thing. And I got, neighbors that trust scientists and things like that. So I'm feeling pretty grateful. We're healthy. We've had our share of sadness, as I'm sure many have. Excuse me, but but I couldn't be happier to be here with you guys today because I think more so, I think we're all going to come out of this appreciating the things that we value a lot more. And I appreciate this community and what it's been able to do for me as a person and just in general. I appreciate it so much. So That was the short answer of how I'm doing. How are you doing?
Oh no, that was a great answer. I'm gonna just
Ah,
fucking
thanks.
clip that and just play it to myself when I'm feeling low. No,
Uh,
I'm no great, great, and I think you're absolutely right. I actually ended up having a long conversation yesterday about all of the different people who, and I kind of spoke to you a tiny bit before the show, who I've chatted to all around the world. And I've been really lucky. The stream streak has turned into something that I hadn't really expected. It started out with people are going to need like there are going to be people who are a bit alone and isolated, and they're going to need like just some dickhead talking into the internet for like an hour or so a day. And I was like, that'll be really good, and it'll be good. And it turned out incredibly good for me as well. But one of the things it's also done is it's helped me stay in touch with people all around the world, like from different communities, like, and it does like from different places in England, like Canada, America, Australia, like wherever it might be. Italy, I did an Italian show recently.
oh, fantastic.
He's great. He's really cool, and that was like at the beginning of the COVID, and and it does just like you said. I think one of the great things about community, because again I was talking about that yesterday, is when you try to build a community, and I think that we've done that with Honest Wargamer, and we continue to try to add people to that community. And it's really just it's not the Honest Wargamers community; it's just a community of people. And I think the best thing about those is that they're so supportive of each other, and I think and also like supportive in ways that aren't. I hope you're okay. They're challenging. Like that's the other thing I think that's good about our
Yeah.
community. That's the other good thing about our community. I think is our community is challenging. Someone like Rob, I think you're being a dickhead, and I'm like, I appreciate that. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Like I tried not to be, or I don't think I was, but like people like, and sometimes when you see people expressing things, you think actually that person needs some compassion, not to be in a fight with someone about something. But that's what I mean. Like compassion, like community isn't just it isn't just like a pat on the back and a cuddle. It's also just like
Sure.
looking out for someone, pushing someone, hoping someone's doing the best that they can, encouraging people, and I think that um, that's good, and I've appreciated that, and you've been a huge part of the community for me over the past few years, and I appreciate you. And so it's nice to have this kind of. I know this is like a giant like fucking broadcast at that stage, but it's just a big circle
That's a
of
love
friends.
cast, man.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's good. Scott B in the chat says, "Never underestimate the value of having a dickhead talk to us on the internet." I won't.
Can't argue with that, man. Damn.
But yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm doing
for
really
sure.
well. I'm doing really well. Thanks
Community
for asking.
gets the word community kind of there's words, at least in America, at least in kind of my experience, they've been watered down a little bit, or maybe they get kind of scorned for being cheesy, or being what is that horrible term, virtue signaling. Like community is like you roll your eyes and it's like, oh, community is something that like your mom cares about with her mom friends. But it's community is what connects us. But what's so special really is as what has come out of, like, you right now, just now, you couldn't put a brand name on our community. Like you said, it's the Honest Wargamer community, but everybody who's a part of it knows that that's not complete enough for really what we're all a part of. And it's not just the AOS community, it's not just the Warhammer community. So the fact that we don't have a brand kind of associated with it, like like the Liverpool fans community, that kind of thing, is so huge for me, at least personally, because what it is, it keeps that community under our care. We're responsible for making sure that people feel safe in interacting with what we do here, whatever that is, which can range from, trying to pick your jaw up off the ground, looking at Studio Erstwood painting pictures, to some of the finest shit posting that the internet has ever seen. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the people that I look up to. Like, it's why this hobby, quote unquote, can go from something that is complete and total solitude, peaceful isolation, which is what I look to for it, especially these days, all the way across the spectrum to 24-hour a day interaction with somebody on the internet or live, face to face. just to talk about your thing. You can find somebody to talk to about this anywhere you are, any time of day, whenever you need it. And if that's not a resource, I don't know what you call a resource. And I think this whole thing has encouraged people to turn to this resource for more reasons than maybe they would have beforehand.
Yeah, no, you continue. I was going to chip in, but I'm not going to.
No, that was it. It's good that you chip in every now and again, because I will comfortably talk from 7:30. It's 7:13 here, and I got to leave at 8. I'll go straight through. And
no, I don't want to chip in. People have heard me say everything that I could have possibly said in my life at this stage. But no, it is and you develop friends. You talk about this. You make friends who you know you're going to make for life, and that's one of the things. Also, I was expressing. I had a very long walk yesterday, and I was also expressing what this community means to me. In that, I feel like the War Fam is maybe, especially because community has been co-opted by a corporate entity, like Games Workshop have obviously called themselves the Warhammer community. But at the end of the day, they are an advertising corporate entity. It's clever
I don't
marketing.
participate in that website at all.
I like clever marketing. That's one of the things.
No, that's not what I mean. Warhammer community page. I go to that page and I use the scroll builder. But what part of the community page is generated by the community?
Oh yeah, none, zero.
None.
And if it's generated by anyone,
page. It's a commercial page.
Yeah, it's a commercial page, and if there is anyone from the community on it, they're shilling like you wouldn't believe, or like they're not shilling necessarily, unless it's some like an army expose, like it was for Vince or something like that.
Sure, all right, that's a great point, and that's something that I should definitely mention. They do the army standpoint, Loopy from Masters of the Forge just had his incredible orc. He had all the orcs. Did you know he had all the orcs? Anybody who had orcs, they're not there anymore. Loopy has them. He had his 40,000 points of orcs in there. Like, that kind of thing is fantastic. And in my opinion, if you're going to call your page Warhammer Community, that's what it should be. But I digress. But the fact that
don't worry, we're going to start the War Fam page. The War Fam, and then the War Fammer is I don't know if that works, but we could try it.
You'll remember it, right?
Yeah, that's true. But yeah,
the War Fapper, and we'll be okay.
That's a whole different page, which is also an exciting time. Right, but so before we go any further, we need to find out about classic intro. How did you get it? How did you get into the hobby? What was your way in?
Well, let me just say that this is every hobbyist's dream, is to be asked their origin story of how this happened for them, because it's like the thing that we're the most proud of but never want to really admit. And no one's ever going to ask us at a party, ever. So
that's actually. So can I just say something? Actually, just on that, as you know, I DJ or did DJ
right.
before, and because I DJ predominantly rock music, there unsurprisingly ended up being a couple of Warhammer people who ended up in the rock societies of the universities or stuff. And last year, one of the kids came and he was like, gave me his coat, because I always took the coats where I DJ'd. He's like, "Oh, can you look after my coat?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And he went, "Oh, I listened to your podcast, I really like it." And I was like, that is two worlds colliding that I did not want. Yeah, like two worlds colliding.
Oh man, I'm not going to look too deep in that he asked you the coat thing first. It's honest. If he was like, "Oh my god, I love your podcast," and dude, can I put my coat here?
No, there was also another kid who would come up to me like, "Do you play Space Wolves?" And I was like, "No, I don't play Space Wolves." He's like, "What's your favourite army?" I was like, "I'm DJing." He's cool. Like, "Tell me more." No, it's not cool. No, it's not cool. I'm busy. Like, it's not. Like, it's the same way people make... I could go on for this all day. The DJ podcast coming soon. Sorry, what's your origin
it's okay.
story?
I don't know. DJing over here means a very different thing. Like, I don't know. I guess we don't really have people that play rock in clubs, at least that I know of. I mean, like, I'm a huge clubber, but like all the club experiences I ever had were always dance music, and then you have like the hip hop style scratch and cut DJ. Not like a selector. You know what I mean?
There will be 100% will be. Like that's the thing about alternative nights, or as we call them here in the UK. Like, it's kind of like the easiest way to find out where they are, and the way that I always did when I went to a new city, this is obviously before like mobile phones and the internet were like huge. I'm not that old, but like there was a stage. Like you
Yes,
basically
there
would,
was.
you would end up in a city and you'd see the other goths, yeah, and you'd just be like, I'll follow them, and you just follow them, and then they'd just be like, here's the rock club. It's as simple as that, yeah, like a tributary leading to the sea, yeah. You just,
Well, yeah, that's how we all find each other, right?
yeah.
So my origin story. Well, it kind of starts. It's pretty similar, I think, to most. It starts with kind of an accidental gift. When I was about 10, for Christmas, I got Blood Bowl second edition, the one with the foam pitch, the uneven one that they would never stand up on. The ball would always roll and all that. And whatever issue of White Dwarf was like this, December, January that year, or November, December. And I think it was a Warhammer Fantasy Nurgle special. So there was a lot of sketch of really intricate, probably it's Aiden Smith. Is that the artist? Adrian Smith. Anyway, I can never keep the name straight. Anyway, of very old school GW illustrations, and I was hooked. I sat there with that. I just looked. I didn't know what any of it was. My mom knew that I liked football, and that this thing said Blood Bowl, and there was like a troll, like hitting somebody with a goblin, and she was like, "Okay, this is." She being a librarian and kind of a book person could connect with that more than, here's a game of American football. I want, just something with a little more of a story to it. So I was enthralled because I had no idea what this was. I'm looking through the dice and the symbols, and I could barely.
Oh, I seem to have lost you there.
And I have two sisters, so. Oh, hello.
Oh no, it's okay. You're back. I'm so
Are you there?
sorry. Please, yeah. So
Okay,
sorry. Yeah, we got you.
Good. So I fell in love with the Blood Bowl, and that set. I never actually played it. It was just something I was fascinated by with the miniatures, and what stuck out to me was the end zone. Excuse me, the end zone of the Chaos team, because it was red and green stripes, and it was like red and green. Like for me, from my visual sense as a kid, like we only saw red and green once a year, and it was Christmas. But it was like, wow, red and green stripes, fuck about anything. So that was so appealing to me as growing up in a really like kind of monoculture 80s America, where they're really, this is like you said, it's pre-internet, I had 3 channels of television at that time. And I'm 42. We're not talking about that long ago, but just being so desperate for some sort of thing that was cool or strange or interesting and came from England, and all like they had the like extra U's in the word color, and that kind of thing was just such a lifeline to me of an outside world, and to be sitting here with you today is a not small full circle for me. It just isn't. So fast forwarding a little bit, because time's going by, life goes on. You fall away from these things. I kind of kept an eye on it because I went to college down in Maryland, and the U.S. Center for GW used to be in Glen Burnie, Maryland, I think. So there was a lot of stores around there. Sorry about the noise. My furnace is about to kick on, if you can hear that.
That's great.
Yeah. No, I love that sound. Don't get me wrong. But I fell away from it when I was in my 20s, and met my eventual partner, who I'm still with now. And then her father, about maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, gave me a very generous gift card for Christmas. I wasn't expecting, or my birthday or something. And I was walking down the street in this little town I live in Western Massachusetts, by our local game store, Greenfield Games, which shout out to them. They're just an incredible place that when faced with unsurety about what to do with kind of the future of their company before COVID, they basically crowdsourced ownership and bought their space, and now have like a rewards program with those people who bought in. And
oh, that's awesome.
It's fantastic. Like the rest of the street probably is 75% empty shop fronts. It's
Yeah.
a small town that lost its industry.
Uh,
But they,
that's the same. That's the same every town. Every
yeah,
town. I can't. I'm super fascinated. If anyone's got the time, it would be really exciting to watch the documentary that they did about Detroit. Which, as far as I'm aware, university is the first ever post-industrial city to exist on Earth. And if you're not quite sure what that means, industry. Every city has an industry. Doesn't matter what the industry is, so that it can make money effectively. Post-industry is what happens when the industry leaves. The story of Detroit is fascinating. As an outside observer, especially to an English person looking at America and
sure.
looking at that. So all the high streets are empty, basically. I think that's a fairly... But yeah, you're right. Like, it's a weird... Towns and situations are weird at the minute. They look
Well,
odd.
well, the reason that they survive is not because of what they sell, other than magic, which is keeps a lot of stores open. And there's a that's all. They do smell bad. I get it, but they keep a lot of stores open. So I'm not going to talk smack about the magic. And that art is great on those cards, man. My daughter's in love with those cardboard cutouts and stuff. But they're a public space, and people can go there and play, and the queer kids at the high school can go there and feel that they won't get bullied, and the kids who are on the spectrum and just need a safe, stable, quiet place to go while their parents go grocery shopping, they can go there too. That's why they're there. It's not because they sell kick-ass board games, because they do, but they've leaned into being what the community needs them to be, rather than trying to insist on being something and then have the community kind of come around to them. So I bought because you're going to laugh at this, I bought the 7th edition 40K 3-book set, which was the rule book, the art book, and the miniatures painting book, I think. So basically one book and then 2 coffee table stackers. But it's the one with the Dark Angel on the front, like the big art, and it was in the window, and I was like, oh my God, Warhammer! I didn't even know that was still around. I got this gift card. I'm gonna go burn it. I went inside, just grabbed the box off the shelf. I didn't even look at it really, and bought it, and went home, cut the wrap off it, and it was like, where's the miniatures? I didn't realize it was 3. It was just books. I thought it was what turned out to be the Dark Imperium set, which was probably 3 shelves over at that point. But I was just so the place I was in my life, I really kind of needed something. You know what I mean? Maybe that's when we find this game and this hobby again, is when we need to. And I was kind of just drift. I needed something that was all my own and a creative outlet and all the other reasons. I got home and I was sitting there with these 3 books. I was like, well, shit. So I went back to the store the next day, and they didn't have, as it turns out, they didn't have a big 40K section, but they had a lot of Warhammer Fantasy Battle boxes, even some Tomb King stuff, which I ended up not realizing that it was, OOP and rare and stuff like that. But thankfully that found its way to who it needed to. Shout out Tristan, gotta shout out Tristan. If you don't shout out Tristan.
He's there in the chat right now for you.
Oh, beautiful, man. Well, he's an hour ahead. It's 8:30 up there, so he should be up, wiping butts just like the rest of us. So I got this book, and I was gonna play Tzeentch, right? Because I was like, I want to do Slaanice, but I know there's no rules out there really for it, so I'm gonna do Tzeentch, and but I'll use Crypt Ghouls because that's what they sell at the store. And I'm such a I gotta have it now guy. I couldn't order pink horrors. I had to have what's right in front of me. So I was gonna use the Crypt Ghouls as my horrors, and I do what every hobbyist says. I'm only gonna have one army, and I'll use it for all these games, right? I'll play demons because I'll use it in both systems. That's a pile of bullshit. So I ended up doing what everybody else did. I overexpanded way too quickly. I got into 40K, AOS, Kill Team. I had a Silver Tower box too. I was like, this is, and came to my senses kind of just in time, and pulled back, sold a lot of stuff, focused in on AOS because that was what I kind of gravitated towards. My first love was 40K back when it was science fiction, and it's weird, but I feel like the rest of the world has caught up to 40K, or at least in my 40-something ass view, the things that used to fascinate me about the 40K world the things that are in the real world are more modern to my eye.
Mm.
You know, are more fantastic to my eye. Like and the grimdark aspect of 40K, which is a great storytelling device, is not something really feel the need to roll around in. As I've gotten older and a little bit more aware of the struggles of the world, I don't, you know, reading about people getting blown up by bolter shells is not calming to me anymore. If it
No,
ever
but
was.
no. The one thing I'd say about 40K is it reminds me of the Battlestar Galactica update. If you, I don't know if you watched Battlestar Galactica,
I
the
haven't.
remake. Oh my
No,
God! In
I
my
know.
opinion, the best TV show of all time. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Okay.
And
You're not the first I've heard say that.
like, unquestioned. I don't even think it's TV. I just think it's art. Like, I'm
Mm.
not gonna bandy words with people. And if
No.
you think and if you don't think that, you're flat wrong. But for me,
Well, let's
uh,
back up a little bit, man. If you bandy in words, whatever other people think, you're being a liar.
yeah, fair, that's okay. I don't mind. I want to express
Now,
how
be
much I
honest.
think it's.
Yes, open your heart.
Yeah, I want to just express how good I think it is.
Good.
But
Well,
what
I've
they
got
did,
time now.
well, but what they did was, I thought, was very clever because effectively, the enemy in that is AI. But then,
Mhm.
how do you update something 30 years later where the enemy is still AI, but we understand how much further and advanced that can be? And what they did was they looked for this kind of safety in non-AI structures as a way to combat it. And I feel
Mhm.
like as the 40K narrative becomes older, just like you've pointed out, I think that's an incredibly good point. I think that they can achieve, if they always have AI as the consistent threat,
Mhm.
then they can create this kind of techno archaic world and nature that they
Yeah,
can. But I mean, that's a very difficult storyline to evolve. I was just saying that
it
that's a
is.
really. It's just a really interesting point you brought up. Like, I thought it was cool. No one's ever expressed that to me before. I loved it.
Oh, thanks.
Whereas the Age of Sigmar stuff can just be whatever the hell it wants, and there's such a
Yeah,
strength in
it's
that,
so
right?
much more of a blank canvas. And there is some of that life during wartime feel to AOS, and I think people are attracted to that. Definitely, like in the Cities book, some really gripping, how do people deal with these incredible events happening in their lives that change everything all at once. I can't imagine why I would be attracted to these stories.
Me either.
Um,
But I
yeah,
do.
go
Yeah.
figure. But as far as 40K goes, the game, I got to play a game of AOS initially, and then I got to watch a game of 40K. And the game of played of AOS was really fun, even though I was viciously hung over at the time. That was my test. Was like I wanted to throw up in my shirt, but I still had fun. Um,
Good
and
test.
then yeah, it's the Pagano test. Um, but 40K, it seemed like the two guys that were playing it were like after an accomplishment. It was like when they got done, they were like, "Yeah, I played 40K." Like you say, like, "Yeah, I worked out. Like, I had a killer workout." Like it was a thing that they did that they were proud that they did that they achieved. And it didn't. It was and this is also saying like one guy brought the starter half, the Dark Angels half of Dark Imperium, which was a few heroes and a couple of bikes and stuff. And the other guy had, this is seventh ed, remember, had a Space Wolves Knight, a Thunderhawk, and the the old Dreadnought, the Dreadnought with the fur all over, the furry Dreadnought that he had,
Yeah.
the Space Wolf one. And so it was like the most lopsided game. I mean, it maybe lasted a turn and a half. And I was like, wow, that's 40. It was the first 40K I had ever seen. I had read about the books. I'd been a fan of the miniatures for 20 years. I'd never seen the game played before, which in and of itself is a great service that your channel provides, is because if you don't see the game played, you don't know what it is. And often your experience is very different after playing versus making your list and painting your miniatures and theory hammering and talking about this unit and that unit. When you go out and you're physically standing in front of the table holding a book and in front of your miniatures, and you have to actually do all this stuff with your body, it can end up being a completely different experience. And it was for me. And I was really rewarded by the part I wasn't expecting to be. And so focusing on AOS was probably the best decision I could have made, because it focused my connection to a smaller community, um, a community that just on rough count seems to have less fascists than the 40K community. I'm not sure.
Well, the
You
premise
know,
of the 40K narrative is a fascist state are the good guys. So, like, when people are like, there seems to be a lot of fascists in 40K, you're like, the parallel narrative is very, very close.
well, the
Like,
sad thing is that there's a lot of fascists everywhere. But
yeah, I mean, that's true.
Sigmar is not, you know, yeah, Sigmar and the Emperor are funny bedfellows, and I think I actually have a cartoon of that someplace. Um,
Good.
so yeah, I'm about halfway through the time I got here. So let me get to use that as a segue, of actually physically standing there playing the game, and I was hooked. So when I started getting into the internet, like I originally got into this hobby when I was a kid because it was something I could do by myself, because it was a solo hobby. I was, grew up with a lot of conflict and a lot of trauma, and being able to shrink my world into this very small spot on my desk was, how I coped, and I'm sure how a lot of people coped and still cope. So I got into this because it was such an enriching yet solitary thing, and I've stuck with it, and it's matured within my own life because it is so connected to other people. And at the end of the day, the people that I connected with over here in AOS, over here, because I know a lot of people do both, I was just a better fit. I was a better fit here. And so I started looking into the internet thing, and it's funny, the first person to actually say Slaanice on TV was not you. I was wrong about that. It was Clint.
Clinto.
Clinto, right? Who I guarantee has me muted on Twitter. I don't think he's blocked me, but he's definitely has muted me. And he's right to do it.
Clinto's more of a rebel than you think, FYI.
I get that sense about him. I think he's very controlled about letting it out, and in the vibe that I bring, in the arena that I bring, sometimes I completely understand. He's a tournament organizer. I am not.
Also, like Clinto's an angel. Like my quick first experience, I don't want to ride over, but I meet him.
Please.
He's been super great to me, and then we go and have this again. A shout out to Travis. Went to Travis's house. This is last year at CanCon, not this year. Go to Travis's house, have this very adult dinner. We got Dan Shorts with us. Yeah, we're all being adults. There's me and Nathan. Me and Nathan are pretty tired, and everyone's being like a grown up, and we're like, okay, Nath, fucking don't swear. He's like, yeah, no problem. We got this. Yeah, right. It just felt really adult. Yeah, me and Nathan would just sit by the side of a road and eat some chips, and everyone, and they're like, it's lovely, and I had a great time, and I want to just say that I had a great time. Then he's like, I'm going to go to meet my other mates from Wodonga, the failed charge guys. I was like, all right, yeah, cool. Like, what are these guys like? He's like, they're a bit racy. Are you okay with that? I was like, I think I'll be fine. I get in there, and I'm just fucking cry laughing about some very dark material for 3 hours. Probably why it was great. My point is, though, they're Clint's mates. Just want to point that out.
Well, that's who was on. It was, I think I forget the tournament. Maybe it was Saggy T. It was one of their. It was their first live stream of an event, whatever event that was.
Yes.
I heard you mention it, and they tuned into it because at that point, and still, every now and again, I was up with my baby in the middle of the night, so the time worked out. And typed it in, Twitch was such an amazing thing. I can type this in, and the person on the other side of the planet sees it. Glory days. So I typed it in, and he's like, Slaanice from America. Hello. and it was such a moment of like, oh, I'm talking to somebody in Australia. They're gonna nerd out about this thing that I love for the next however many hours. Gemma was there. Who I don't remember who else was on the broadcast, because once you have Gemma, who else do you need, really?
Yeah, fuck you, Dennis.
I'm just kidding. We're friends on Twitter too, man. That guy's a hobbyist.
Yeah, he is.
But I was hooked. I had no idea any of this was out there. I had no idea any of the Warhammer Fantasy Battle community existed to the extent that it did. I didn't know about any of the UK tournament stuff, none of it. So that was my intro to it. And then started, watching the Honest Wargamer and being, just another asshole in the chat. And then I got a new phone and I figured out how to screen cap on it. And and then I figured out that this is the secret to my success. If you tap on the picture and it says on an Android, it says Open in Photo Editor Pro. It's this little program that all the Android phones have. And then there's a little thing you can draw around whatever shape you want and cut it out and then put it on another picture. And then that's it. And doing that to you and to Nathan and to Tristan and to Ben Johnson, which I didn't. That's a whole other story. It was just so fun. And it was so, I'm not going to lie. I loved the attention that being absurd and being silly gets, but that also feels really important to me because, like you were saying, absurdity and weirdness and uniqueness is what keeps monoculture and keeps the capitalists confused because they don't know how to capitalize that. They don't know how to produce that. And the more weird stuff that's in our community, the more absurd stuff or cheeky stuff or 18 plus stuff, however you want to describe it, as long as there's no cruelty there, as long as there's no aggression there, it's absolutely necessary to make sure that what we love about AOS and the hobby doesn't get chewed up by the money, because it's almost incredible that it hasn't happened yet.
Well, ultimately, yeah, I absolutely. I number one, I mirror your sentiment. Problematically for me, I know that I try to more and more avoid anything to do with grand scale politics on the show if I can help it.
Sure. Right.
Because you and me have very similar feelings about pretty much everything. I'd assume. But the point is that I agree with you. I think the really fun thing about this community, and I was going to say to the start, is actually when you break down to it, it's a group of creative people using it as a creative outlet. It doesn't matter what that is. Maybe their jobs aren't creative, or maybe they like their jobs but they want to be creative in a different way. Or I think it's really interesting that you picked up Blood Bowl. It made me somehow just immediately kick off Monty Python. And how I just pictured you picking up like some American kid picking up Monty Python, picking up Blood Bowl, and then I went into this. Yeah, I just thought about Monty Python and how fucking weird and outrageous and out there that is. And maybe it's a very English thing. Maybe it's not.
You're right. It is well, that is a real part of it because the art in that book is full of little weird details and strange, esoteric fantasy things, and for a white kid in the suburbs, man, anything that wasn't coming out of ABC, CBS, or NBC was weird and foreign and new, and that's what I'm talking about. Is that strangeness that nurtures imagination and encourages you to come up with your own weirdness and your imagination. So I got about 20 minutes left, and this is a perfect spot for what I wanted to talk about.
Please do.
And the reason I bring up capitalism and stuff is not for a political reason, but because commercialism, as I see it, like what you're talking about, when someone's creative, they're creating for pleasure, hopefully. In that it gives them pleasure, and then the other side of that, which is one of those tiny miracles, is that your creation gives somebody else pleasure too, and you get to share that. And that is the greatest feeling, for the people that feel it and people that are rewarded by it. It's the greatest feeling in the world. That is true pleasure. Commercialism replaces that pleasure with relief based on buying a product, doing a thing, participating in a thing. They create a problem. Are you hungry? Are you lonely? Do you want your miniature to look like this? It's last chance to buy. And then the feeling that you feel afterwards is one of ecstatic relief. It's not pleasure. And mixing those two up is very easy to do. Pleasure, as I define it, and again, this is all just from me, and everybody makes their own decisions in this venue, is something that it doesn't feel edgy or anxious, or you're like, oh, this is so fun. Like something that you genuinely can look back on afterwards and say, how much of this was I really feeling good? Was I really feeling good? Did I feel good at all during this? Or only at the end after meeting a certain set of requirements that either the company puts out through what it says or I put out for myself. Say I'm a competitive player who says that they love playing community, like get a lot of pleasure out of playing competitively. But when I did that, my little stint on Rage of Sigmar, I got messages from competitive players that said, yeah, that's funny that you said that because what I'm feeling afterwards is relief that I won, not pleasure in the experience. And the fact that the person who I'm thinking of specifically blocked me on Twitter 2 days later means they were telling the truth.
Can I jump in with a personal experience on that?
Sure.
Because one of the things, obviously, for the show, so I commentate and I review the books. Like the Honest War Gamer, no matter what else it is, fundamentally at its core is meant to be about the game state of both Age of Sigmar and 40k, and making you make good decisions, good purchases. These things are good. So if you wanted to buy something good for gaming, these are good. But also having people like Sam on the show, Darren on the show, and myself, Nathan, sometimes is in the face of that, eschewing that idea and going for the thing that is fun. And working out how to have we've had loads of conversations about how to have the best fun games with your opponent while still also trying to win games.
That first thing you said is about pleasure too. You're trying to heighten the person's pleasure in the hobby by telling them that if this is the goal, this is the way to avoid the feel bads and to enjoy what you're doing along the way rather than, oh, I finally figured out what the fuck I need from my army.
Yes, exactly.
So pleasure is common in those two things you're saying.
Yeah, precisely. For me, though, like one of the pressures that I felt, and I asked someone to come on the show recently, and he said no, but I'm hoping eventually he'll be free enough. But as a content creator, you sometimes feel the pressure to perform well, i.e., if I don't do well at an event, will people criticize me and think that I don't know what I'm talking about? Like, if I'm talking about a tactical game on those like, well, this idiot went 3-2 last tournament, yeah, but for me, it's not so much as, and there's been a lot of self-analysis I've had to go through. Am I scared about taking a dick-kicking list and going and crushing with it? Because what if I can't actually do that, right? So there's fear there.
What if that dick is uncrushable?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What if it's made of titanium? But no, because I like, and then I have to self-check myself and say, look, Rob, you do this for a living. You have conversations about this daily. You're quite aware of how things work and why. And so when I make lists that are janky or fun, like I'm really looking at Smorgan's mixed order list that he wrote yesterday. I put it up on Twitter just because I was like, this has really got my like mental juices flowing. I've been playing Zeech, I've been playing Host Arcanum. Like whenever I play something, I give myself that challenge because for me that's an additional pleasure. It's not an additional stress. It's like, and what I don't do is put I have to win on my own head. Yeah, sure. Because like you said, like I feel that is it would be a relief to win and prove myself. But validating myself would be a relief that I don't need to get. Yeah, what I want to do is have fun, and I can have fun. I can have fun and try and win, and I think that I can do well even if I'm being a bit of a contrary dick, really.
Well, I gotta say, like people trust that process you're just describing versus the relief. People are going to trust your experience. They're going to trust what you say and what you've learned if it comes from that pleasure place, because that comes through in what you say and how you say it and the choices that you make there. Like I went 3-2, but if you enjoyed yourself the whole time and and when I say enjoyed yourself, I'm not saying in a frivolous way. I'm describing the things that you do. Like it's more of a there's integrity there. And when you put the pressure on yourself, you create what is a false narrative. You're putting that pressure on yourself. We're not saying, Rob, you better go 5-0 or we're going to unsubscribe. You're putting that narrative on yourself. It doesn't exist. And then people will respond to that inauthenticity, shall we say. In that we know that deep down, we know no one is really like like your contract's not on the line if you win, like, or lose. Like, we know that pressure isn't there for you. So people that act like the pressure is there come across as dicks or as people you don't want to be around because it reads as inauthentic. It's inauthentic stress.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, I can have five great, and also it's about like perception, like not
yeah,
perception, but genuine interactions. Like,
yeah, exactly. Authenticity.
yeah,
Like, people know you know what you're talking about because that vitality comes through in everything that you're saying when you're enjoying yourself. When you're not enjoying yourself, we can tell.
I'm sure, I'm sure it's very obvious. I got a face that's as readable as you. Like, I'd be crap at poker.
Oh
But
my
anyway,
God. I didn't have a chance to put it up, but I screen capped the exact moment, the exact reaction shot of when Pagano burped in your mic at Adepticon. I'll put it up afterwards.
oh my god!
But I
Good.
got about 10 minutes left. Just to
Yeah,
let you know.
please continue on with your points. Yeah.
Well, that was the point. Was not to get too far down the road of you know of pleasure advocacy, because that's a thing that I'm kind of into, and if I really recommend it. If people have interests in social justice and human rights, but also in connecting to the world and feeling good and having pleasures and enjoying things, is pleasure advocacy is a great overlap of those two, and that's really what I'm trying to bring to our little community. And that's prioritizing the process and not the result. All the shit that you hear, that all the like the road along the stop and smell the flowers, the friends along the way, not where these threads are here. We know this is how to enjoy the hobby. Maybe the real treasure was the thing along the way. That's everybody responds to that because deep down we know that's what feels the best to us, but it's also the hardest to slow down and get. And the messaging that we get from these companies we rely on for this stuff is that if you follow these set of guidelines, that will lead you to maximum fun. And they're not really concerned with how you feel along the way.
Yeah, they don't. The perfect example of that is the gaming environment. Like, I think about this quite consistently. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if we relate this back to Warhammer, I would say that Games Workshop aren't overly arsed with you actually having a fun time, like at the tabletop. I know that sounds
Right.
odd, right? But they do make a game.
You've already spent, by the time you're at the table, you've spent every single dollar you're going to, unless it's Bugman's.
Yeah, at Warhammer World, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Whereas, but they should understand a good, and this relates back to being a club promoter. Very quick. I make the point.
Please.
What I did was I just made it good. Yeah, and then I invited people to come, and they enjoyed themselves, so they kept coming back for
Oh my God.
13 fucking years. Yeah,
I know.
right.
My
Like,
background as a chef was also in event planning, and the stuff that you describe and Nikos describes and Tom and all the people who go to Warhammer World to describe, it must be like when Nathan hears people talk about building, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I put the plaster in the microwave," and he's like, "Oh my God," like that level of just you don't even care enough to know you don't care, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, but that's where the TOs of the world are the legends, because
Oh,
because they create an environment, they eschew some of the rules, they create tournament packs, they do things, they work so hard, and also the community
They're the pleasure
itself.
lords.
Yeah, and they are, and also the community itself then creates its own sliding scale. You have entire communities like the WS10 guys who have a motto: "Don't be a dick." Like, that's their system
Yeah,
of
right.
you have self-comping.
But
Australia's really
do you
good for
listen
self-comping.
to the Painty Men, Legends of the Painty Men?
I
You heard of
have,
them at all?
I have yes, yeah, they're great.
Paint your shit. Don't be a dick.
Easy.
What's the other? So I before I run out of time here, I think I've kind of said all I, kind of did my pleasure thing, and I don't think I'm going to get to the Slaanice list.
Well, how about we
that
come back
I
and do
came
that
up
another
with.
day? I'm well up for that.
I would love to, and I
I'm
just
up
want
for
to
a
give a
mod.
shout out to Darren Watson, because
Oh.
the pleasure that he takes in list crafting and all that stuff pushed me to a new level of enjoyment with that aspect of it, and that's what led me to this list of running Depraved Drove Beasts of Chaos under the lurid haze invaders from the Slaves to Darkness book. That's there's like 3 layers there, but it's so fun. And you can basically, it's around It's based around using Shalaxi, Hellbane, and Great Bray Shamans to pull units away from the mesmerizing mirror, so they have to take D3 wounds each time.
Oh, nice.
So if they want to pile in, move, charge, move away from it, that's all going to be D3 wounds each, plus the devolve spell, plus the challenge that Shalaxi does. So, and then there's a few other odds and ends in that if you throw Celeste in there under invaders, you can have multiple generals as long as they're outside of 12 of each other. If you do that with him, Celeste can then use his command abilities on the beasts. So he can make them battle shock proof, and they can reroll ones to hit. So you have the mortal hero in charge of the beasts, and they're all just like smoking pure Slaanice skin.
I really like Beast and Slash. I think it seems thematics. I don't know why. Tzeentch Beast always seems odd to me, but Slash. But I also love that. I think that's fun. And you're right, Darren, who I'm recording a show with later, and a whole bunch of people in the world love doing those janky fun things, because sometimes it's just doing that on the tabletop. It goes back to Malcolm from Jurassic Park. I'm going to quote my friend Dan Sway. It's a question of you didn't stop to ask yourself if you could, just if you should. And I think that's the quote, or maybe that's not right. I can't remember the Jurassic Park quote.
No, got it.
Close
That's
enough.
Okay.
But sometimes you just ask yourself, can I do this fun thing on the tabletop? And then you put it into effect. And I think
in the end, I'll put it up later, but it's actually it's one of the most powerful lists I've ever kind of gone, and it uses not powerful. Like, my favorite thing is to use not powerful units in a way that's like, haha, fiends, haha, that. But listen, I gotta run. Unfortunately, I hear the pitter patter of little feet and Papa being called. But this has been just a real treat, and I wanted to give some quick shout outs to my 3 babes, and I'm gonna leave the Rage of Sigmar guys out of this for now because I didn't know them then. But back when it was just you in a white background and like a fluorescent light over your head, Hook and Pin, LLV, and Tristan were and continue to be so kind to me and such a part of my enjoyment of this hobby and this community that shout out to them. Hook and Pin kept your ass in jelly sandwiches by them bits, like, weekly. She is invested in the Honest Wargamer, man.
I know.
If you ever start picking out dividends, she's the
to be honest, I wish you hadn't given me quite so much, because now I've got a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwich midriff that I've got to start dealing with.
Well, we didn't even get into our we're both lapsed martial arts students.
I did not know that. But
yeah.
Honestly, we're gonna redo this. We're definitely gonna do a you, me, Tristan, Hook. We're gonna do like a round table show one day. It's gonna be really fun.
We'll do it. We'll do the white walls, just all of us in front of plain white backgrounds.
That's it. That's the future. I just like that. I like that minimalist, stark, sci-fi vibe.
Brother, I got some pictures of you that I will never show anybody.
Oh my God! Right, okay. Right, we're gonna go. But can I just say, big love to you. You're incredible. Yeah. I want to say big love to everyone in the chat for joining us. Scrivo Smorgs, Hook, MJ
hit
Pegsis.
Me up at Slaanice on Twitter. SLAANICE. Also, I'm on Honest Wargamer. I'm working with Discord, etc.
I'll put in the link in the show notes. And thank you. And if you listen to the podcast, stay hydrated. Thank you to everyone else watching on Patreon. Could not do it without you. And as always, just stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, take care, and we'll